and welcome back to the Colors of Parenthood. Today, I have a special guest joining us, Casie. She's a mom of three and has an incredible story to share about her journey through motherhood, including the mental health challenges she faced along the way, both with her kids and with herself. Hello, everyone. This is the Colors of Parenthood, and today we have a guest here, Casie. Casie, could you please start by introducing yourself and a bit about your background?
Sure. I am a mom of three children, and I was a flight attendant for 26 years, and I retired at the end of 21 because I had a journey with my children with mental health struggles. All three of them. They're in their teen years, and now they are in young adults. and um, I discovered that peer support changed my life while I was going through it, and how much stronger I was to help my kids, and that I couldn't find what I was looking for. So I created, I'm the CEO and co founder. I created Other Parents Like Me. So it's online support for parents who have kids struggling with their mental health.
Amazing. Okay, I'll ask more a lot of questions about that later. Where are you from specifically?
I live in New Jersey, in the United States.
Okay, and the difference with your kids. So you said you have three children. What is the age difference there?
So they are 24, almost 25, my daughter, and 23 and 21 are my two sons.
Okay, so they're in their early 20s. Amazing. And as we spoke before, because I always focus on postpartum mental health, could you share a bit also about this journey with your different experiences having three different children?
hmm Um, yes, it was. I'm sure you remember that just before we had met, I had learned, and here I am, 56 years old. I had learned that I had postpartum depression. That I back, 24 years ago, and I had no idea. um, because I'm on my own journey and growth, and working with therapists, etc., and trying to understand what that was like for me, and to understand and have that. Oh my gosh, I had postpartum depression from the entire all of the pregnancies, and I never stopped because they're only 21 months apart. So my oldest was 3 when my youngest was born. And I had postpartum straight through that all the way. I would say probably until she was 5, until the oldest was 5. It was a long journey, and on top of that, I was diagnosed by the time my third was born fully, that I had a thyroid issue as well, which can come with pregnancies. So you kind of start to, even though I didn't have the thyroid issue with my first, and was barely there with my second, I still was like, oh, it must have just always been my thyroid. And now learning and understanding the difference between postpartum depression and thyroid, even though they can kind of be very mixed up because your thyroid also really messes with your emotions, um, was it was eye opening for me, to understand that the first 5 years I wasn't crazy. Because I did, you feel crazy, but I wasn't crazy. So it was really helpful, and something that may have led to my children on their own path, because I wasn't as strong of a person. I wasn't as stable of a person. And today I know that someone would have known. I would have gotten med. I mean, this is what I hope. I hope I would have known. I would have gotten meds, and I would have gotten help sooner, and not felt so overwhelmed with being a mom with three young children.
And how old were you when you had your first?
I was 30.
Okay, and would you say that people were speaking about postpartum mental health even because that would
Not
have helped
really.
with being aware also, like having this
Yeah.
idea that this exists.
Yes. No, no, it was not something that was really talked about. And it's interesting just the changes of what was tested for as because my last one I was 35. So the things that were tested for even changed. Like they didn't even start testing on thyroid until my second child, because they started to see correlations. And would there have been like if there had been like a test or something like that, like, hey, let's let's do a little survey, and let's just not chalk it up to your lack of sleep.
Yeah, it's a bit annoying because there are a lot of tests and surveys about it. It's just I don't think the medical system around the world cares to give it to the patient or the mom after she gives birth.
Mm-hmm.
I think this would change a lot. The yeah,
Yeah.
hopefully. And so, because I always ask my guests, because it's really curious to hear the differences between having children, because every child is different in a way. Also, like every
Mhm.
baby is different. What was the difference that pops up in your head between the three of your children?
My oldest was born with severe anxiety. She used to cry from about 5 to 7 for the first 9 months of her life and had all the tests, like what people
Mm-hmm.
back then was colic, right? And none of those, and you couldn't hold her and feeding her and putting her in her rocking, nothing worked. You just kind of had to survive through it. And what I understood back then is I think we had kind of an advanced doctor at that time, pediatrician, said, this is just her releasing the anxiety of the day out of her body. And you just have to wait until she can let it go. So, like if you see a dog who's kind of had like growling at someone at a other dog and they're nervous and they're anxious and then all of a sudden they'll like shake their whole body and let it go. It's kind of like what she was doing. And so that's the first thing. And then my middle child by 9 months old, he was walking, crawling out of the crib. So it was,
Wow.
and then my youngest had very active older siblings, so he never crawled. He just scooted on his butt so he could see everybody, and was just kind of chill, like not really crying and stuff like that. And it's just interesting how different they were. Um, just like those are like my first three
Yeah.
stood out for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's and also those facts that you've just said, like that you've experienced the differences that also affect your postpartum mental health. I mean, the increasing anxiety of your first one, and like she cried a lot, that can definitely change. Because would you say
Mhm.
that there is a lot of say like comparison between moms also, like saying you can do this and this and that, but also the child is different, so the experiences would be different.
Yes, 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 exactly.
Yeah.
Um, and you know, it's stressful to see your child crying like that, and that the only thing you can do is just walk around and hold them.
Yeah. And back then, did you had any like friends that you can talk to about your experiences? Like, so I feel like this and this and that. Is that normal?
No, I didn't really. Everybody else that I knew, at least came across them in my life with kids, they didn't have a child who just cried like that. And those who did, it was colicky and they knew what to do. They, put him in the shower, and I didn't have an option. And you kind of feel trapped in the house when you know, like, I have to be back by this time of the day, or everybody's going to know how hard it is here in my house.
Yeah, that sounds really stressful. And I wonder, now that you know that you experienced also postpartum depression, does that make a difference of your view of motherhood overall?
Oh, it's changed a lot of my view of I was doing the best I could. because you didn't always, when you're feeling out of control, when you're feeling depressed, when you're feeling like I'm just going to say you feel kind of crazy. You really do. Like something's wrong with me and I don't know what's wrong with me. And everybody's just saying it's because of my lack of sleep. It's because, the breastfeeding is hard because I got, what is it, metastasized on
Yeah.
your breast, yeah. That just, the pain just made you tired. I had a huge episiotomy with my old, so everything gets explained away
Yeah. Okay.
instead of, and it doesn't fit what you're feeling, if that makes sense. But you go, oh, well, they all must be right. They know what they're talking about. They're experts.
Okay, I love what you said, like everything is explained away. That I think
Mm-hmm.
that will resonate with a lot of moms that are, because I see a lot of moms sharing that, like, I feel that is that normal, and a lot of people would say, well, you haven't slept, so
Mm-hmm.
maybe that's the consequence. But I think here we're raising a really amazing point that it's never late to know what's been going on, and that can make a difference, even though
Mm-hmm.
it's been a while ago, right?
Right. Right. It's never too late. It also helps you know that in your heart that you can let go of that feeling you were a bad mom.
Yeah. Mm, I wonder, did that also like affect your motherhood overall when the children were growing up? This feeling and this thought?
That I was never enough, that I never could figure out the right things to for each person, and yeah, it just kind of follows you through um, your life with them, and you're just not aware uh, why there's tension, and why, like, your kids can be anxious because they grew around you being anxious early in their lives, um, and that's hard to know. You are their primary caregiver. I mean, I was their primary caregiver for their first 5 years of my oldest life with everybody, the other two, and in there, and um, you just really struggle later because you start to think when they're in their teen years, oh, well, if I had done this better, if I had done that better, and if I had done this better, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be here. We would, but instead, I wasn't capable. I wasn't able to do better. Nobody helped me. I didn't get medication for it. I mean, even the thyroid took 2 years to get regulated. So it was like, till my kids were 7 um, for that part. And that's really hard to know later on.
Yeah. And sorry, I forgot my question, but I wanted to ask you, did you want to have children? Was that planned back
Oh,
then?
yes. Yes. I totally wanted to have children. I've always wanted to have children. It was just my brother and I, so I knew that I also
Okay.
always wanted to have more than two.
Did you
Yeah.
plan like having them so close to each other?
Yeah, that was the goal. Um, I figured it was going to be, uh, I was already in diapers. I'll just stay in diapers. That way I didn't have to worry. The only problem is I wanted to have four and my husband didn't want to. He's like, I don't even have enough hands now for when you're walking. So yeah.
Mhm. So are you saying that even though you've experienced all those emotions, you would have had another one?
Hmm. I would have.
Yeah. Okay, because I speaking to a lot of moms, it's just everyone has different opinions, and some of them that have experienced like really severe depression, for instance, they're like, I don't want to experience it again. But some of them
Mhm.
are. It depends how much you want
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's just like when you have your first, it's the pregnancy is really long, it's horrible, you have all this pain, all these things happening to your body, right? And then you get pregnant with this. For me, I'm not saying everybody has this, but for me, all of that, the new one was coming in, and I just felt like I forgot all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And until all of a sudden I was having pain again, and I'm like, and then it's interesting because you kick in like, oh, I've done this before, I can do it. But my youngest, so my children were 9 pounds 5 ounces, the first two, and my youngest was 10 pounds 11 ounces. So it was hard. I had natural birth for all three, and it was hard to have that he was so much bigger. Um, and I think that, and I'm still have another one. Like, just because I loved being pregnant. I loved giving birth. I loved the baby part. I just didn't love the stuff that went with it, that I didn't know was depression. I didn't know was making me cry and weep and easily. And
Yeah.
um,
I think
yeah.
definitely being aware and knowing that something is like the fact that you're feeling that way is not that you're crazy, is that it happens because of this and this and that and has a specific reason and logic behind it can definitely make a change. And I remembered what I wanted to say. It was that
Yes.
I think the best thing I'm hearing from everyone is that you need to realize that you're doing the best that you can for your specific conditions, your context, because everyone is different. And I will try to keep that in mind when I'm a mom, because I see a lot of people struggling with comparison and like they do it. I have to do it as well.
Yeah, yeah. I'll never forget. One day, my husband came home, and we had music on in the house, and that was my oldest was around, I think, 5 or 6, and he said, the difference in you, like, there was a sudden thing, a sudden change. And what the way I noticed it was there was music in the house. I always have music in the house. I am like, I play with kids all the time. I'm just one of those people. And he and I was like singing with them, and like we had pots and pans. And he said something clicked for me, and I was different. It would have been nice to not have them be that much older before that clicked in and music was brought back into our house. Um, but I would offer that most probably other moms are going to have that. There's going to be something that someone's going to say and go, "Oh, that's gone for you. Something's changed." And that was what it was for me, was that people said you brought music back in the house.
This sounds really beautiful.
Mm.
Really warming situation. Like I love music as well, and I imagine me playing with my future kids only music
Mhm.
every time.
Mhm.
But it's a really good signal also, because I
Mhm.
think one of the main symptoms is just you stop doing what you've liked before and whatever
Yeah.
made you feel good about yourself as a person and individual, not only as a parent but other roles that
Right.
you have for yourself. You stop doing it, and that's a really huge symptom and signal of having some issues there.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And even now, that didn't register for me until we were just sitting here talking. I was like, wait a minute. There was a moment where it was noticed that I was out of the darkness, and that was music.
Nice. I want to ask you more about parents like me. What was the reason that you founded it? And yeah, just share a bit about that.
Um, so I founded Other Parents Like Me because I had a child with anxiety, a child with self harm, and a child with substance use, and I just the only thing back in 2018 I was told was to go to Al Anon. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's a 12-step family loved ones group. And it just, first of all, didn't feel like it fit me because my child was 16 at the time. And these were, partners. They were people who had parents who were alcoholics. They had their children were 40. And I wanted to find a place that kind of fit me because I was not, didn't want to still do this at 40. I felt you could leave your partner and your parents no longer with you. Like, but I'm 16, like he's 16. And then having the other mental health challenges. So my the one with substance use also has ADHD. That's really ruled his life, his whole life as well. And the substances kind of was a coping mechanism that calmed his voices. So just so each of them had their own struggles, and I didn't want to have to go to learn or be with other parents that got it to like 10 different places. I wanted to go to a place where I could say, behind my four walls, this is what I'm struggling with. I'm not even I don't remember how to do self-care. I'm not feeling regulated at all. I feel like I'm yelling at my kids all the time. And I need to figure out how to communicate better with them. And I'm really bad at boundaries. I'm really bad at like holding them for myself and for them. And that's what we created. So we have 17 support groups a week for parents who have kids with mental health challenges. And it doesn't matter what's going behind your four walls. You're going to come in and do a meditation, talk about a topic, and be with a whole group of people who also can talk about, I really struggle with communication. I struggle with boundaries. I don't even know what self care is. And yes, I can be a crazy person and I need to be able to be regulated. And I noticed for myself the change in our family when I started like learning those things, and it just calmed the whole space down. So I really wish that I had learned it before. Like, wouldn't that have helped if I had already known that kind of these are things I needed to work on? And we have moms groups, dads groups, kids in programs, treatment centers, because that sometimes happens. Um, moms who've taken their kids to the ER, gratitude groups, and meditation group, and an adoptive family and self compassion group, because you need to have a lot of self compassion for yourself as a parent. You really do. Like, it's this journey is not easy, and no matter how many books you read, you still have to learn to trust your gut, because you're, like you said in the very, very beginning, each child is their own person. So there is no rule book or a book or a podcast that's going to say, like, this is how you take care of ADHD. This is how you take care of social things. Um, and we're all just kind of figuring it out as we go. And having other people that you see and get to know who are also figuring it out as they go, with like kind of really chaotic households, it's huge. It's a big help. Regulates, calms you down, makes you feel not alone.
Yeah. And that sounds amazing, and I just feel like probably a lot of people were resonating, right? Like feeling like, okay, this would have been really helpful, or this is amazing that it exists. Because it's such a different. I started to think like diagnosis overall, like ADHD or addiction. It's just a box that puts people in boxes, basically the diagnosis. Whereas every person experiences it differently and has to have an individualized approach. And it's also that also a bit like frustrates me with the diagnosis and the boxes, because that puts a label and all of those things. And I'm curious with addiction specifically, because it's a stigmatized topic as mental health as well, but addiction specifically, where, like, what was the struggle in the beginning? Did you find a lot of resources, other resources for helping your kid, or um, how did you manage?
It's really hard when you have a child under 18 to find resources. It tends to be blamed on you as a parent. And so you hide. I'm sorry, I'm going to cry. You hide in shame that you've done something wrong. with your kid, and that you can't share how bad it is. You know, the police coming to the door, the running away, the social services, you know, being involved, and you know, him skipping school, and um, being the kid that the other parents don't want to have their kids play with anymore, you know, be with anymore, is really, really hard. So you hide because there is such stigma. There is, and it's I'm hoping that we're working on helping to change that. I mean, there's also stigma of saying that, you know, you can say your child was anxious, but your child has severe anxiety. What does that mean? Like, you know, your child has social anxiety, and you're like, you're navigating this feeling just alone, while others are showing pictures on social media of amazing things.
Yeah, I I agree. It's really hard. I don't. I specifically have experienced family members struggling with addiction, but it's such a different. Also, culturally speaking, in Bulgaria, Eastern Europe, it's so stigmatized because I've lived in the UK and I saw the difference with also
Mhm.
the social services that can help people. But one thing that struck there as well is that we don't there is no guidance how to help the family itself. So
Right.
how are we supposed to also stay sane when we are
Mhm.
experiencing this? And I would say that you're definitely a hero, speaking that you've created this mission of in your life to have other parents like me. I definitely admire that a lot. And I'm really passionate when it comes to having support groups for people that have difficulties with a loved one. Because
Yes.
this is the first step with every mental issue, with having OCD or ADHD or whatever. It's such a huge help to know that there are other people struggling in the same area and you're not the reason that you have a kid like that or a partner like that or whatever you think it is the reason.
Right.
Yeah. And
Right.
yeah, I got also a bit emotional, but it's a
Because
really
you're afraid. You're afraid, and if we connect this back to what the postpartum stuff, there needs to be help for the loved one, the partner in with it, because you don't know what to do either. Your partner is not the same person
yeah.
before they had the child. And if you have any trauma from your own childhood where your mother yelled or whatever, you may think, "Oh, see, once you became a parent, she's just like my mother." So now you have to kind of take away and step away from that and say, "Wait, that does maybe we need to see what's happening with my wife, my partner, and see if there's something else going on." And there just needs to be support for the loved ones, I think, for everything, because they bring their own stuff from their childhood into, you know, well, maybe maybe a partner lost someone from addiction in their childhood, and now they like, I can't love this person. I can't be with this person. I can't be with you because I can't lose another person. Like, so there's so much that can happen, and you need to support the people who are supporting the ones going through it, going through the hard stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And I also started thinking that because we don't know how to help our friends or loved ones, we could enable the negative aspects of. Because I had this example of OCD specifically, like you can enable your loved one having the compulsions or rituals. And it's the same with addiction, with the fact that if you don't know how serious it can be, you could enable it because you see your loved one struggling with it and you don't know what to do. So
Mm-hmm.
there should be much more resources, and this is only the
Yes.
beginning because my master thesis was on that, supporting families with a loved one with addiction. And I've researched so much in the literature, and there is so much, like a huge gap when it comes to that.
Yeah. Yep.
Education
There
is
is.
a lot.
Hmm. It
And
makes such difference. I'm sure you probably in your research realized education for the loved one is helps this even their own personal stigma of um, I have to let them go, or that kind of dropping them. And if you understand like what they're going through and what it's like, and you know it just changes the compassion you have for the person who is struggling.
yeah, I can only imagine, like, if you're a parent, the one thing that definitely can help probably is to read a lot about also the specific either mental health issue or addiction, to know what are the reactions, what can happen, so you're aware how to react yourself and how to keep yourself sane in a way, even though it can probably be really hard, because
Hmm.
that means also to not feel guilt, to not, like, a lot of emotions that are really naturally happening when you're human.
Yeah, yeah. And you're afraid, right? That's another part. Like you're just afraid that your loved one's not going to be here anymore.
Yeah. I wanted to ask, when you said, like, because he was 16, was it because also it's really hard to manage when you're a teenager, in your late teenagers, like before you're 18, the the social services that you can go seek help is either with really young kids or with adults.
Hmm.
Okay,
Hmm.
I think that's everywhere. It's a
That's
huge
normal.
issue.
Okay.
It's a huge issue. It's in the UK as well. The whole UK has this system, and it's struggle for the child that's doesn't don't know where it's his place.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Our social services really did try to help us, and insurance tried to help us, and school tried to help us, and then it just got to the point where they didn't know what to do, and the social services just wanted to put him into a boys' home, and we were like, absolutely not. That's not a choice. Um, because also, I don't know if this is the same in Bulgaria, but in the United States, there's many states that the child as young as 12 has to agree to any treatment. They have agency, like their parent can't just force them. Um, and in New Jersey, it's 18, but some are like as young as 12, and you know that's scary that a 12-year-old can say, who has just been had a suicide attempt, as is in the hospital, and say, yeah, I'm not staying here. And the parent
Yeah.
and their only thing they say is, sorry, you have to take him home. It's like, but my child really just attempted to die. And if the child doesn't agree to stay there, the only option is to take them home. And now you feel like a prisoner because you don't know what to do, you don't know how to help, and you don't know how to get, like you said, information fast enough to change communication, to change self-care. And it's hard. I don't know
Yeah.
what your age there is.
I'm actually not sure either, but probably 18 as well. But this is another, like, I think, grave issue with that. The system is also against families in a way, with this type of laws and other, like, not really supportive laws.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um
We'll just pause right there. Yes.
I also wanted to know, like, what do you remember the specific moment where you were like, I need to create this support system, like other parents like me, like the specific moment where you're like, okay, this is enough. I've had enough researching. I've had enough issues with the system. All right, I need to create this.
Yes, I do. And I think it's a lot of people started to change their lives. It was during the pandemic in 2020. Um, I couldn't go to visit my son at his boarding school. I couldn't see the families that I was starting to love and hug and along the way. And I just decided I didn't want to lose that support network of having people who get it. And so I created support groups. And from 2020 until 22 is I was building and creating and understanding what I wanted. And because we had 14 families in the very beginning and we had one support group. And by 6 months into it, I had 8 support groups and I had 350 families. And that's when I knew right there, like this, people need this. People need a place to talk. People need a place to learn and hear other people say things, which is, I think, what your podcast is about, right? Hearing someone else say out loud what the struggle is, what's going on for them, so that they hear themselves in that person and go, oh, okay, I'm not alone. I'm not alone. I'm not
Yeah.
alone. It just it changes lives to hear someone else tell their story, even if you're hiding. Guys, I don't know, but I think even people with postpartum probably hide it because they feel like I should. Why am I the one who has it when my girlfriend is just like happy and walking around and no issue and bouncing the baby, and I'm like in here weeping and like holding the baby and crying. You know?
Yeah. It's definitely with the postpartum mental health issues, it's a thing. If you hear that you're not alone, that can change your life. Like we have it with our patients because we are creating a platform for that and we can see it definitely and they say it to us. And it's, yeah, I think with everything is like that. You want to belong and you feel like you're not alone in this struggle. It's such a human thing, and we all, I think, feel ashamed and afraid of saying it out loud, so someone has to make the step.
Yes, someone has to make the step. Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah, 100%.
And now that you've grown a lot with the other parents like me for such a short time, let's say it's not been long since you started it, what's your vision with it?
My vision is that this will be around from generation to generation, and parents will know from here on out that they're not alone and that they can go into some peer groups and succeed and feel supported and buoyed even during the worst times of their lives.
That's beautiful.
Thanks.
Yeah, I just realized like being not alone and being understood in your worst time, the worst time of your life, I that's I think the most wanted thing in our generation, also as being a young adult saying it, because we feel the fear of rejection, and this is why we want to know that even in our worst time of our lives we can be accepted. I think it's such a human thing and amazing. I don't know what else to say besides that. um but I got really curious. It does also the dynamic in your family changes a lot after you created other parents like me, because that is also like your individual growth, and that can I can see changing a family dynamic.
Yes, absolutely. They don't. I'm working a lot more than I ever used to. I stress out about money, to make sure this keeps going. And I'm also stronger because I've learned so much about things I didn't even know existed to know, about projections and stuff. I've grown, and my knowledge, my confidence has so increased, and mm, my family sees that, and they do wish me well, which is lovely. That I'm doing something that's just about me. Um, and I hope that that means that my children will see, maybe sooner than me, that you can step out and do something really hard. Um, and you're going to see ups and downs, like they've seen me, the ups and the downs of being an entrepreneur. And you see me navigating and still getting up every day and still doing the things. And that's what I see is I kind of modeling for them.
Yep.
And that's changed because they are in their 20s and they are in that start of life of where am I going next?
Hmm. Yeah, I can. I'm sure that they see it. I can't imagine not seeing, like, having this role model now and having all the struggles like you've experienced as a mom and they've experienced as growing up as teenagers, and now they should be in a really different stage in their life.
They are. They
Seeing
are.
how you've become like going step away from this part of your life as a family and now going into this part. um yeah, it sounds really inspiring overall.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I don't know if they always love it, but yeah. Sometimes they like the flight attendant mom who had a lot of time on her hands.
And as our time is passing by, I wanted to ask one last question, which is, what would you say, as one advice to another mom that's struggling with having kids with mental issues, and that when she feels like really lost and confused?
I would say that you didn't cause it. And that voice that says you are a bad mom, if you're able to put it down, strengthen yourself, you will be able to be there with them. Self care is the key. And I know we say it like a ton, but to manage through it, even if all it is that you ate breakfast that day, that's self care.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you just sat down for 1 minute with a cup of tea, like it doesn't have to be extreme. And I think we all think that the self care when your kids are struggling is taking something away from the kids, but it's not. It's giving you the strength to be there for them. And it doesn't have to be crazy. You don't have to go and get your nails done for an hour. Like literally, it's, stand outside for 5 minutes in the sun.
Amazing. Yeah, I agree that basic needs are self-care.
Mhm.
Especially when I hear other moms, what you just said resonates with a lot of women that I've spoken with. Like, if I do this, that's taking me from my kids and like taking care of them. But when I speak with people like you, you're the example, like the real example that self-care is needed so you can take care of your kids.
Mhm. Mhm. And it doesn't have to be crazy.
Yeah.
You don't have, but that, and I think people have this image of self care as like this hour-long thing. And yeah, of course, that makes you feel like you're taking away from your kids. But no, it can just be I sat down for 5 minutes with a cup of tea, or coffee, or I stood outside for 5 minutes or a minute and got some sun. Um, or I did, a meditation app, if that's your thing. But it can just even be 30 seconds that you close the door and take a shower.
Yep. Exactly. That's
Right?
also, especially if you have
Mhm.
three children, like
Mhm.
really young ones, it's taking a shower. It can be a struggle from what I hear.
Yes. Taking a shower. That was always mine. Like, hand them off. I am taking a shower. That's
That's
self
your me time.
care. Put on a music and rock it out
Yeah.
while you're taking a shower. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Casey. That was really
Thank you,
wonderful,
Georgia.
and it was really emotional, and I think we spoke about a lot about like serious topics that needs to be talked about because they're not going away if we don't talk
No,
about them.
no, Georgie, they're not going away.
So thank you so much for sharing this with me and with us, our audience. Sorry.
Well, thank you for asking me. And I'm hoping that knowing other people knowing that it's okay to acknowledge postpartum and you don't have to wait till you're 56.
Yeah, I hope that as well.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.